Hey guys, this is Benny Ricciardi with rotocurve.com coming to you live with another section of Benny's Bats for today, Saturday, August 16th. The idea of the Benny's Bats section is we try to go through each pitcher that's on the mound today, figure out what his weakness is, and then figure out which batters on the other team profile to do the best against him. We got a full 15-game slate today, so let's get right into it. The first guy we're going to talk about is Matt Boyd. Boyd is a rookie for Detroit. He's allowed right-handed bats so far in limited major league action to hit .316 against them, which is consistent with where he struggled in the minor leagues as well. The two guys on that Houston team that I really like and would try to get into my lineup, Jose Altuve has a .397 WOBA with a .142 ISO number against left-handed pitching. Last year, he had over a .400 batting average against left-handers as well. So hitting left-handed pitching is something that he's always been good at. The other guy I'd look at is his double play battery made up the middle. You got Carlos Correa with a .395 WOBA and a .286 ISO number. So as a shortstop, those are some of the better power numbers that you're going to see, and also a really high WOBA, meaning that he has been able to get on base, he has been able to get some extra base hits, and he has been able to rack up the fantasy points, as WOBA is the most closely correlated stat to fantasy production. Excuse me. The next guy I want to consider is Vidal Nuno. Nuno has allowed right-handed bats to hit .305 against him so far this year. Let's see, with 4 home runs and only 19 innings worth of work. There's a couple guys on that Red Sox team that make a little bit of sense to use here. Xander Bogaerts is probably the most consistent hitter they've had against left-handed pitching. He has a .400 WOBA, but not too much power with only a .105 ISO score. Two other guys who are kind of new to the lineup that I think you can take a look at. You have Jackie Bradley Jr., who has been on fire since being called back up. .494 WOBA, .259 ISO against left-handed pitching. So he's another guy I think is going to be in play. And the other rookie, Rusney Castillo, has a .415 WOBA with a .163 ISO. So I think any of those three guys are going to be people you can put into your roster. And all three of them are cheap, so they're going to give you a little bit of salary savings as well. Next guy we can look at is Chris Russin from Colorado. Right-handed bats are hitting .306 against him with 7 homers and 60 innings pitched. Left-handed bats are hitting .333 against him with 4 home runs and 21 innings pitched. The only guy who really stands out to me on this team against left-handed pitching is Jed Jorko. .356 WOBA, .164 ISO. He's been getting a couple more RBI opportunities lately and has also been racking up a couple hits. When they played the lefty the other night, you also had Matt Kemp hit for the cycle. So where Kemp is cheap, I think he's somebody who's in play. As I said the other day, he was one of my favorite options. I'd much rather use Kemp than Upton against a left-handed pitcher. So I think you could also roll Kemp out there, although numbers-wise, he hasn't been having a huge season other than that cycle the other night, actually. Next guy we could talk about, David Phelps. Right-handed bats are hitting .270 against him with 5 homers and 61 innings. So he's pretty much a reverse splits kind of guy. Going up against that St. Louis team, I think that means Randall Grichuk is going to be in play again. .385 WOBA, .287 ISO. I mean, this guy has been absolutely on fire for a 23, 24-year-old rookie. I think he's been a great find for this St. Louis team and is somebody I wouldn't mind using here as well. Also got to put Matt Carpenter in play anytime they go up against right-handed pitching. He's got a .382 WOBA with a .221 ISO number against righties. He's been hitting some home runs lately. Again, I'm going to say it only because every time I say it, he goes out and does it, but he's not a big home run hitter. He's more of a guy that you should put in your cash games. But lately, every time I have him in my cash game, he's hitting a home run. So I'm going to keep saying it, hoping that he does hit another home run today. And I'm not going to try to put him into my tournament rosters because I don't want to jinx it. Next guy that we can talk about, Aaron Harang. Left-handed bats hitting .290 against him, 6 home runs and 51 innings pitched. I think you got to look at a guy like Adam Lind in that case. .387 WOBA, .232 ISO number. He hasn't been as hot as he was earlier in the season, but this guy is he's a very good professional hitter, especially against right-handed pitching from that left side. You also got to look at Chris Davis with a K. .362 WOBA, .229 ISO number. He's been crushing home runs lately, so I think that he's somebody else that you can use here. It's a good hitter's ballpark over there in Milwaukee, and Aaron Harang is not somebody who I'm really afraid of. So I think that Davis and Lind are the two guys I like on that Milwaukee team. And those are the two guys who are standing out on the numbers. Next guy we can talk about, Yankees rookie Luis Severino. Left-handed bats are hitting 250 against him in limited major league innings pitched. The only left-handed bat they really have right now on that Toronto team is Justin Smoak. If you're looking for a cheap option, he is dirt cheap all over the place. I think he's $2,600 today over on DraftKings. On Fantasy Feud, I think he's about $35,000 overall, which is pretty much their minimum price over there. If you haven't started playing over on Feud yet, they still have about 12 seats left for their big $500,000 championship at the end of the season. It's coming up in another couple weeks. Again, that's basically the only place. You had last night. You had the DraftKings championship. You had the Fantasy Aces championship. FanDuel's championship is next week. So this is about the one place that still has a big money prize pool going out there. And again, it's the third biggest prize pool of any of the sites. $500,000 is nothing to sneeze at. And there's still 12 or 13 opportunities for you to get in there. So if you haven't signed up yet, make sure you get over to Fantasy Feud, sign up for an account, use the promo code CURVE when you sign up. You'll get 100% deposit bonus up to $500. And you'll also, if you email help@rotocurve.com, you'll also get a free $25 to start playing around on the site and, figure out how it is. If you come over to the RotoCurve forum, if you have any questions about the site, we usually have a couple of the guys from Fantasy Feud are members, and they come over and answer any of the questions that our users post. So if you have any questions, comments, anything, they're looking for the feedback. So make sure you come over to the forum, post something about it, and you should get a quick response from either one of us on the RotoCurve team or one of the guys over on the Fantasy Feud team as well. Speaking of other bats in that Toronto team we can use, though, you got guys like, all the right-handed bats who have been hitting right-handed pitching pretty well. Even though Severino's a big prospect, this is a tough matchup for him. He's pitching up in the Rogers Center, which is a great hitter's park. And again, this Blue Jays team is very good. The Yankees have managed to take the first two games of this series. And I think the Blue Jays, if they really want to make this a race, have to take this game to keep it, within a half game. You got Joey Bautista, 380 WOBA, 298 ISO. Josh Donaldson, 379 WOBA, 253 ISO. Chris Colabello, 378 WOBA, 178 ISO. And Troy Tulowitzki, who at the moment is at a 350 WOBA and a 224 ISO, just since coming over from Colorado not too long ago. So I think a lot of those guys are going to be in play. Again, Severino's been very good in his first couple starts, but I just don't think this is a great matchup for him. I definitely wouldn't be using him, and I think you can roll out some of these Toronto bats, but that's a call that you guys are going to have to make because this is the first time that most of those guys are going to see him. Next guy we could talk about, Kendall Graveman. Left-handed bats hitting 272 against them with a 1.57 whip, so he's really struggled to get left-handed bats out. And right-handed bats are hitting 276 with 10 home runs and 56 innings. So right-handers have been the guys that have some power. I think that means Manny Machado's in play, 390 WOBA, 238 ISO number. Again, on top of that order, he's been pretty solid. Good hitter's ballpark in this one for him, so I don't mind using him. The other guy who's been on fire has been Chris Davis with a C. Again, just like the other Chris Davis, he's been crushing home runs too. 369 WOBA, 298 ISO number, and he has 3 home runs in his last 2 days. Next guy we can talk about, Yovani Gallardo. Left-handed bats have usually been the way to attack Gallardo, but this year he's only allowed them to hit 236, which is a pretty good average. The only left-handed bat I really like on that Tampa Bay team is John Jaso, the catcher. 381 WOBA, 178 ISO number. It's been leading off for them. It's been very, very good. And I think that would be about as much as I would be looking to use anybody on this Tampa Bay team here. Let's see. We got Drew Hutchinson pitching for Toronto against the Yankees on the other side of that game. Right-handed bats are hitting 325 against him with 8 home runs and 56 innings pitched. So I think that puts a guy like A-Rod in play with the, way Hutchinson's been struggling against righties. Again, that game's up in the Rogers Center. A-Rod, right-handed bat, has a lot of power. Even though he hasn't been swinging the bat as well in the last couple games, he's a guy who does stand out to me. I also think you can look at a bunch of those guys from the left side. It's not that Hutchinson has been lights out to lefties, but he's just been a little bit better than he has been to righties. Mark Teixeira, 404 WOBA, 342 ISO, hit another home run yesterday, having a breakout comeback season. Definitely think he's in play. Brett Gardner, 361 WOBA, 163 ISO. I think he's in play. And even Beltran's been hitting the ball better. McCann has 2 home runs in his last 3 games. And a guy like Ellsbury is just, somebody who can do a little bit of everything. So I think that there's a lot of guys in that Yankees team that you could put in play today. I think you might even be able to stack that Yankee team up against Hutchinson. Even though Hutchinson has been better at home, the numbers that he has this year are really not all that great. So he's not somebody who's scaring me away. Let's see. We got Tommy Malone going up for Minnesota. Right-handed bats are hitting .299 against him with 12 homers in 55 innings. There's really not a lot of right-handed bats on Cleveland, basically at all, guys that I'd want to use. The best guy they have is actually somebody who's been hitting in the bottom part of the order, and that's Giovanni Urshela. 353 WOBA, 130 ISO. Had a bunch of hits the other night, has been pretty hot lately, but I mean, I almost feel like it's grasping at straws, even telling you guys that he's probably the best bat and somebody you can look at. I really want to target people against Tommy Malone, but there's nobody that I can really tell you stands out to me. Next guy we can talk about is Jeff Locke. Right-handed bats are hitting .263 against him this year, but right-handed bats have even been better against him in the past, so I think that would be the way you want to attack him. Wilmer Flores is really the top guy that stands out in righty-on-righty matchups for the Mets. He's got a 377 WOBA, 228 ISO number, so he's probably the best bet. Second base, shortstop eligible, depending on what site you're playing on. And, he's really the top guy that I think stands out. The other guy who has pretty good numbers, even though it's a same-handed lefty-on-lefty matchup, is Lucas Duda. Duda has a 385 WOBA with a 235 ISO number. So besides those two, I don't see a lot of guys on the Mets. This Mets offense is not one I like to target, especially when they're at home in Citi Field like they are today. Let's see. Next guy we can talk about, Ian Kennedy pitching in Coors Field. He's given up about a .250 batting average to both sides of the plate, but he has allowed 25 home runs already this year, which is pretty high. You got guys like Cargo with a 414 WOBA and a 317 ISO. He's probably my favorite play from this game. Nolan Arenado, though, with the way that Ian Kennedy has been giving it up to both right and left-handers, Arenado in righty-on-righty matchups has 20-something home runs already this year, has a 387 WOBA, a 321 ISO number. Again, he cooled off a little bit, but he did just hit another home run the other day, so I think he's going to be somebody else that's in play. You also have a guy like Charlie Blackmon, 371 WOBA, 189 ISO, and Ben Paulson has been hitting very well as a lefty against right-handed pitching. 368 WOBA, 213 ISO number. Definitely another guy who I think you should look at. Let's see. We got Giovanni Yordano Ventura going up against the LA Angels. 269 average, 7 home runs, and 51 innings pitched to left-handed bats. Again, Cole Calhoun is probably the best left-handed bat on that Angels team, but he hasn't been having a huge season, although he is probably the solidest option that you do have in this game. I think Mike Trout in the righty-on-righty matchup, 420 WOBA, 302 ISO number. You also have Albert Pujols, who's been cold lately, but he still has a 365 WOBA and a 260 ISO number. I think those would be the two guys I'd look to use on that Angels team. But again, I'm not really trying to target a whole bunch of Angels in Kauffman Stadium against the Royals. Next guy we talk about is Dan Haren. Right-handed bats have hit 280 against Dan Haren over the course of the last 3 years. A little bit of a reverse splits kind of guy. Jose Abreu is the one guy who stands out most on the numbers, and especially in the righty-on-righty matchup. 374 WOBA, 226 ISO number. So he's somebody who has really good numbers righty-on-righty, and Haren is somebody who's been struggling righty-on-righty. So it all kind of fits together. The other guy who hits well against right-handed pitching is Adam Eaton. He should be on top of that order. 362 WOBA, 182 ISO number. So he's another guy that I think you might want to look at today on that Chicago White Sox team. Let's see. Henry Owens is pitching for Boston. Henry Owens is a left-handed pitcher. He's a rookie. He's only been up for a couple starts. Right-handed bats have hit 276 against him in his limited innings in the majors. At Boston, I think there are a couple guys you could look at. Nelson Cruz is probably the top option. He's got a 484 WOBA with a 340 ISO number against left-handed pitching. The other guy you can look at is Franklin Gutierrez. Gutierrez has a 396 WOBA with a 265 ISO number. They're probably the two best options that you have on a day. Hold on one sec. After that, we got Ruby De La Rosa. De La Rosa has allowed left-handed bats to hit 305 against him with 17 home runs and 66 innings pitched. There's really nobody on that Atlanta team, though, that you want to target against him. The two best left-handed bats that they have are Jace Peterson and A.J. Pierzynski. Both of those guys have WOBAs under 350. Really, like I said, there's not much here that stands out that you can target against Ruby. I actually think he might be a sneaky play on the mound today. Next guy we can talk about, Anthony DeScalfani. Left-handed bats are hitting 262 against him with a whip of 1.50, 9 home runs and 67 innings pitched. You got guys like Justin Turner, who just came back off the DL. Make sure you put this guy back on your radar, especially on a site like DraftKings where he's second base eligible. He has a 443 WOBA, a 268 ISO number, and he's just been absolutely on fire so far this year. So I think he's somebody that you can definitely consider. You could also look at all the left-handed bats. You got guys like Andre Ethier, Yasmani Grandal, and Adrian Gonzalez. They all have WOBAs in the 380s. They all have ISO scores 220 to 240. All three of those guys are going to be guys who are in play. For Houston, you got Mikey Fires, who was just traded from Milwaukee over to there going up. Left-handed bats are usually the way you want to go after him, but Detroit does have a bunch of guys that are good in righty-on-righty matchups. You got Miguel Cabrera with a 427 WOBA and a 213 ISO score. You got J.D. Martinez with a 389 WOBA, 279 ISO score. They're the two guys who really stand out based on the numbers. Remember, Miggy's another guy who just came off the DL, so he's going to be low-owned while people, don't even know that he's back to play yet. So I think he's another guy that you can look at. Him and J.D. are both in a good spot for a home run. Fires is a high strikeout guy, but he also throws it pretty hard. And when he misses and, leaves it up in the zone, these guys are going to be able to crush one. Let's see. Drew Smiley is pitching for Tampa Bay. Smiley's a lefty. Texas pretty much sucks against lefties. There's really nobody on that team that has a WOBA over 350 against left-handed pitching. So I think that Smiley's another one of those guys like De La Rosa who might be a sneaky option. And there's really nobody on that Texas team that I really want to target. The guy who stands out the most to me is Adrian Beltre, but he is not having a great season this year. I don't think I want him in my lineup today. And like I said, I think I'd rather use Smiley than use any of the bats on this Texas team. Let's see. We got Wei-Yin Chen pitching for Baltimore. Chen actually has been pretty good. Right-handed bats are only hitting 250 against him, which is his weaker split. But he has given up 22 home runs to right-handed bats already this year. The only guy on that Oakland team that I would want to use against him if he's in there today is catcher Josh Fagley. But again, he hasn't been all that great since he had a pretty hot start. He does have a 380 WOBA with a 209 ISO number against left-handed pitching. So like I said, he's the guy who stands out most based on the numbers. You got Shelby Miller. Left-handed bats are hitting 266 against him, and he's been absolutely lights out to some of these right-handed bats who are batting under 200 against him. So the only guy that I really like on that Arizona team is going to be David Peralta. Peralta's price has jumped up on some of the sites. I think he's up to $4K now on DraftKings. He was a guy we were using every day when he was a $3,500, $3,600 guy. I think he was on a whole bunch of the top rosters yesterday for that FWBC on DraftKings. Guys playing for $1 million, or FBWC, I guess it was. Peralta has a 385 WOBA, 236 ISO number. He's been just absolutely crushing lately. He hit another home run. He's been driving in a ton of runs. Definitely a guy that you should look at for your rosters. Even though guys like Goldie and Castillo have good numbers in righty-on-righty matchups, Shelby's been really tough on righties, so I don't know if I want to put either one of those guys in my lineup today. And I think that's probably where I'd cut it off with just a guy like Peralta if I was looking to use anybody. Last guy I want to talk about is Joe Ross. Joe Ross had been really, really good up until his last start, but left-handed bats are hitting 299 against him with a 1.60 whip and 4 home runs and 20 innings pitched, which is actually why he struggled in his last game because he faced the Dodgers that have a very lefty-dominant lineup. Let's see. The only guy who stands out as a lefty on San Francisco that I like against him is Brandon Belt, 372 WOBA, 222 ISO number. But again, this game is in a really bad hitter's ballpark at San Francisco, so I'm not sure if I really love him today. And that pretty much sums it up for the guys that I'm going to be targeting. There are some pitchers on the mound who I'm not really looking to target guys against. Hector Santiago for the Angels against Kansas City. Not looking to target either side of the plate against him, and I'm also not looking to target Santiago going up against Kansas City. I think this is one of those games where it's just a solid matchup against a tough team. So I don't think I have any certainty either way and wouldn't want to, use either the bats or the pitchers here. Taylor Youngman going up against Philly. Taylor Youngman's been very good, so I'm not looking to target too many of those Philly bats against them. If you want a cheap guy, you guys know I love Cesar Hernandez, somebody who can get on base, can steal for you. I like Cesar Hernandez a lot more when he was leading off. I don't like what they're doing now by putting Chase Utley on the top of the order with Cesar in second. I don't want the base paths blocked up for Cesar Hernandez. I don't understand why they're doing this at all. But again, I'm not the manager of the team, so it's not really my call. Next guy I want to look at, Carlos Martinez against Miami. Basically, Derek Dietrich is in a decent spot, left-handed bats against Martinez. But again, Martinez has been pretty solid. That Miami offense is not all that good, so I'm not looking to target too many bats here. You got Carlos Carrasco going up against Minnesota. Carrasco's been really tough this year. Minnesota struggled with right-handed bats. The only guy on Minnesota who makes a little bit of sense is Miguel Sano. Big WOBA, big ISO number, been hitting a lot of home runs, batting cleanup. So he would be the one guy I might want to use on Minnesota. But again, not looking to target a lot of bats against Carrasco. You got Matt Harvey against Pittsburgh. Not looking to take anybody there at Citi Field. Chris Sale against the Cubs. Not looking to take anybody there. Madison Bumgarner against the Nationals at San Francisco. Not looking to take any bats there. And Zach Greinke, not looking to take any bats against Greinke against Cincinnati today. So that pretty much sums it up. That's every pitcher that we have on the mound today. Gives you the rundown of everything. Wanted to make sure I got this out nice and early so you guys had time to watch it and, digest it before you had to make your lineups today. Remember, lineups are locking early today. It's a Sunday. And that pretty much concludes our Benny's Bats section for today. Thank you guys for joining us. If you haven't signed up yet, make sure you get over to rotocurve.com, sign up for an account. We're going to be having a lot of our football content is going to start coming out over the next couple weeks. If you have any questions or anything that you guys want to see or want to ask us about football or baseball daily fantasy, make sure to post it in the forum and we'll get back to you and try to answer it as soon as we can. So thank you guys for joining us this morning. And as always, stay classy, DFS.